Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor in front of a papier-mâché castle made by his brother. I'm going to be reviewing an album called Renaissance by Apashe, A-P-A-S-H-E. And I'm going to title this video The Coolest 20 Seconds You've Ever Heard. I believe that on this album, Renaissance, there is a little section of one song that is as cool and as badass as anything I've ever heard. But before I get there, let's talk about the album and kind of set it up a little bit, okay? First of all, I like to preface most of my videos by saying that my ignorance is profound. And by that, I mean there's a lot of things I don't know, but also in that not knowing, there is a depth because I'm listening to music, a lot of music I don't know a lot about, with open ears, flexible, curious, and educated ears, okay? So what I want you to do is if you are an Apashe fan, if you're a big fan of electronic dance music and I say something wrong or stupid, just correct me. And if you're not, then join me and learn about this very interesting artist. I'm not an expert in Belgian music. This guy is Belgian. I know a lot about Stromae and Jacques Brel, but I don't think there's too much crossover here. I'm not an expert on EDM. I listen to a lot of electronic dance music. It's probably the third most reviewed genre on this channel. It's the least popular genre. Basically, rock and hip hop get a lot of views. Electronica, basically none. But I don't care. I do this channel to discover new music and to answer the question, is there any good music out there? With the answer, yes. I'm also not an expert on music from Montreal, where this guy now lives. Although, I did review an album by the band Snails. I'll put a link up there, and you can watch that. It's pretty cool to think that Snails and Apashe are in the same town making interesting music. I love Montreal, and it seems to me that maybe there's something really cool happening there. I don't know. Are you a Montreal scenester and you have information to share? Share it in the comments. What is this music like? Well, you know when you watch a trailer for a movie, and there's that part, right? Like an action movie, right? Where everything's going super fast and they're all punching each other, and then it goes, right? Like everything's going fast and then they slow down and then they do something super cool in slow motion, you know, like Wonder Woman, like cracking her whip, and then everything speeds up again and they start punching. Imagine if the feeling of watching that, watching the trailer with the cool orchestral music going, and then a little bit of electronic stuff, and that's what this whole album is like. If you could live inside of a modern movie trailer, that's what this is like. But I'm selling it a little bit short, I think. I think the best way to think about this is to think about it is to say the word think 4 times in 2 sentences, Skye. Way to keep all these new viewers you got. The best way to consider, to contemplate, to view this album is in the context of Daft Punk's soundtrack to Tron, which you see up here. This is the thing. The Tron soundtrack is a masterpiece, but it's also a complete disappointment. How can both those things exist at once? Well, if you're like me, you're like, sweet, a new Daft Punk album. But it's not really. It's like mostly a soundtrack to a movie, and it's mostly orchestral. And the bits that are electronic are just a little bit here and there. So it feels more like a soundtrack and less like a Daft Punk electronica album. But what if we took this concept and extended it out? What if we developed this concept much, much, much further? That's what Apashe does. Now, he doesn't do it as well as Daft Punk. Nobody does anything as well as Daft Punk does it. But he is taking true orchestral music, like an actual orchestra, not Pro Tools and din, 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 din. That sounds like a violin. Put it on. Like actual violin players and French horn. How do French horn players play? My son plays French horn, but I don't know. Anyway, actual French horn players, actual orchestra. And the difference is very clear. When you hear a real orchestra playing real music next to Pro Tools and electronica and semi-dubstep and trap beats, it's an amazing combination. And Apashe takes this concept very far. And I think, on the whole, this is a very good album that does that, especially in that magical 20 seconds I'm going to play for you very soon. The downfall of this idea is at times it can feel a little bit cheap. Hudson Mohawk is another great producer. I think he's out of Glasgow. And I believe he was the one who really popularized using the really low symphony horns, like underneath in kind of badass techno and hip hop. At times, this album feels like it's just sort of doing that, as opposed to exploring this concept of how can orchestra and electronica go together. It feels a little bit lazy, but that's not too much like that. But I would say that's the low point. So let me take you through the songs until we get to the third track, which has the bit I've been teasing from the beginning. It starts off with an overture, and the overture is what made me think of Tron immediately. It actually sounds like an outtake from the Tron soundtrack. Purely electronic with weird little purely orchestral with weird gribbly electronic bits kind of thrown in. The next track is Distance. This is where things start to really get building, of mixing the orchestral and the electronic. Like trap drums and then string and horns come up, and they come up to a drop. This is nice. I like it when electronic music uses drops sparingly. You know, like and then something happens. I think there's only 3 or 4 occasions of that. Again, it's not that I don't like it, it's that it's kind of cheap, and they don't do it a lot. And it's got these great kind of like whiny leads with like a synthesizer, maybe distorted voices, really great sounds. And then we get to Behind My Eyes. This is the song I'm building up to. So leading up to the instrumental break that I love so much is a very strong electronic orchestral song with a singer, a female singer, kind of Billie Eilish style vocals, right? Very much in that kind of vein. But then at a certain point, sorry, I have my notes here and they keep falling down. I had to fold them in half, and I swear, if I have to edit this video, okay. So it leads up to this instrumental break. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to describe it to you first, and then I'm going to play it for you. So it's like there's these thumping, like really good rhythmic bass lines, you know, like doom, 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 doom. At the same time, there's like this high psychotic chorus. Like, you know, in a horror movie, when someone's just about to get killed, like in The Shining, you know, like those sounds in the very beginning of those really spooky people yelling off in the distance. So you had the doom, 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 and then there's this orchestra hit, which is just a really like a hit, like a splash, a rising splash. But the sound it makes is so unbelievably satisfying to have a real orchestra play this in this context, mixed in with this doom, doom, doom. And then the singer comes back, but this time her voice is distorted to the point where it becomes a lead instrument. It becomes something like a synthesizer or like a very high guitar, but it's just her voice super distorted. So I want you just to hear how all of this comes together. And you know, I think that Apashe really has the potential to do some really great things. And I think this little bit from Behind My Eyes is it. So, right? You hear that? You gotta listen to your headphones though to really get how satisfying those are. And then there's her voice. And there's all these kind of crunchy sounds in the back. And it's leading up to the point where she comes back in this low key and sings. Right? A lot of space, a lot of breath, a lot of that in this album, where there's some space put in, some breath put in, and then she'll go back to singing. So that's Leah singing. So I hope you are as excited as I am by listening to that. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just a sucker for really good orchestra hits. Or just for this concept. but it is a great example of what electronic producers can do when they're trying to do something new or trying to take something that was new and make it better. The next track is called Lord and Master. This is the most purest example. It's just him. It's not him and somebody else. It has like this violin opening with like this great flute playing, and then these crazy choral hits come in, and then these like stutter step rhythms, and then in the middle there's a long section with a mournful violin, and it's really nice. There's kind of this distorted voice that keeps on coming back and talks about the pointlessness of money, which is nice. This isn't a very bling bling album. The next track is called Dead, another highlight. It's got some, I assume, British rapper named Yizzy, who kind of goes in between rapping and singing. But in this case, what he says isn't important. He's more of an instrument on this track to go with this amazing music that he's making. He has this style of like taking the sound and going whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It sounds like a kid is playing with a volume knob on a stereo. Whoosh. Like he creates rhythms like that. I can't tell. Is this really annoying, or is this a cool trademark sound? I don't know, but I kind of like it. And it's cool because it's got sort of weird existential dread to it. He just keeps on saying, "We're dead, we're dead." How does he say it in a British accent? We're dead, and I can't do it. I can't do a British rapper accent. Then the next track is like another crazy banger called Uebok, Uebok, which is this very, very psychotic gonzo song. You know, like I love techno, I love electronic dance music, whatever you want to call it, when you feel like you could go crazy listening to it. And that's really how you feel, because there's this Russian, I did a little bit of research, turns out like it's a Russian rapper that he found, and Uebok means like crazy guy or something in Russian, and she's rapping in Russian, and the sounds go really well, and the orchestra bits are actually taken from an old Russian folk song, and it's all kind of going together. And again, it's something new and different. And I listen to a lot of electronic dance music. I listen to a lot that I don't review. And it's not even that I don't review it because I don't like it. I only review things that I like. But it's that there isn't enough to say. This album gives you something to say. The next track's called Good News, which just gets me very pumped up. A beautiful piano intro being played, these nice arpeggios, very good distorted singing. Towards the end of the album, maybe not only is the Hudson Mohawk stuff bug me, but maybe the rap stuff, maybe there's a little bit too much rapping, or like the rapping isn't quite strong enough. I don't know. I prefer him more as someone making electronic dance music and not someone who's making hip hop beats. But it's okay. Like the song Insane with Tech 9 is good because he uses fast rapping to make like a ominous soundscape. Fast rapping is not really my thing, but it's nice because it's mixed in with kind of like beats and synthesizers that feel like they're raining. That's a bizarre description, but I think it works. Speaking of work, the next track is called Work. Really nice instrumental section in the middle there. Like lots of orchestra and synth leads playing off in between each other, giving that great epic feeling. I Am Fine, I think, is the most subtle usage of this hybrid of orchestra and techno, because there's like xylophone sounds. That's cool. You know, like real xylophones being played on a techno song. It veers a little bit too much into the Hudson Mohawk aping with the horn hits, but then it saves itself by the subtlety of sounds that are underneath. This is a really good one to listen to multiple times on headphones to hear the depth and texture. One thing that Apashe does that not all electronic artists do is every song has at least one element that the second time you listen, you go, oh, I didn't pick up on that. He added an extra texture. He added an extra layer. He did something. He changed something. So it has a kind of depth. The track Green Crack got an immediate strike because it's all about being high, and I hate songs about being high. It's hard being a music reviewer. But then it kind of turns into being about how he gets high to avoid intimacy and that kind of vulnerability. So that's okay. And then it ends with the track Rain, which is very pleasant. The orchestra is used very sparingly, but for atmosphere. It's a very atmospheric song, kind of a sleepy, distant singing. So there you go. There's my review of Apashe album, Renaissance. Renaissance. I should pronounce it in the French way. I mean, he's Belgian, lives in Montreal. So, there you go. Have you listened to this album? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Did you watch this and do you feel tricked by me because you don't think that was the coolest 20 seconds of the decade? That's fine. You can disagree with me. I like disagreement. Okay, so until next time, for the Bestman security guard and Bosk, there's the camera.